There are certain things that just about anyone would find frustrating to deal with. One of them is unbearable summer heat, the kind where all you want to do is lie under a direct stream of air conditioning and sip on something cool. And honestly, if that sounds like you, maybe don't live in Thailand. We're talking about the type of heat that makes walking barefoot on shimmering asphalt uncomfortable or sitting on leather furniture risky. Your skin might just stick to it. Another headache? The Homeowners Association, or HOA as they're commonly known. Dealing with their rules, standards, and penalties can be enough to stress out even the most level-headed person. I've been there before. Just ask me about the $300 fine for hanging wind chimes, or the formal complaint I got for having an extra car parked in my driveway while my sister was staying with me during her home remodel. That's when I decided I'd had enough and swore off HOAs forever. So imagine my delight when a plot of land not too far away went up for sale, and better yet, it wasn't under any HOA jurisdiction. It was a private sale, which meant freedom from those overbearing rules. The house itself was more modest than my previous one, but I didn't hesitate. After confirming with a real estate lawyer that the property was definitely outside HOA oversight, I put in an offer, and it was quickly accepted. The first few weeks were amazing. I fixed things up the way I wanted, decorated how I liked, and even hosted friends without anyone complaining about cars in the driveway. Sure, the house was smaller, but it came with a huge bonus, a pool. That was going to be my escape from the relentless summer heat. But about a month after moving in, I received a certified letter at my new address, and right there on the envelope was a name I knew all too well, Margaret Bluer. Yep, that Margaret. She was the ultimate HOA Karen, the kind who ruled the board of my old neighborhood with an iron fist and a clipboard like it was a weapon. Her letter was full of bureaucratic nonsense, claiming that old land surveys somehow placed my property under HOA oversight. She listed a bunch of changes I needed to make immediately to meet their ridiculous standards. For a second, I panicked. Had I really not escaped after all? I called my attorney, Elena, and explained everything. I even sent her a photo of the documents. A few hours later, she called back laughing slightly and said, "Don't worry, this is either a mistake or a bluff. Your property is independent. Ignore the letter, but let me know if anything else happens." Relieved, I set the letter aside and tried to move on. But peace never lasts long when someone like Margaret is involved. 6 days later, I came back from a morning run on a scorching Saturday. The heat was already sizzling outdoors, so I figured it was the perfect time to jump into the pool. As I swam laps, I thought I heard the gate creak and the distinct sound of heels clicking on the pathway. I surfaced and saw her, Margaret herself, standing by the edge of the pool. She was dressed to perfection in white linen pants, a pressed suit, clipboard in one hand, tape measure in the other. I hadn't interacted much with her before, but I recognized her instantly. She wasted no time getting started. "Afternoon, Mr. Austin. You received a letter from me last week regarding numerous community standard violations. I've checked your property, and none of them have been addressed. Your pool fence height is non-regulated. There are wind chimes outside your door, furniture on the front porch, and your landscaping rocks haven't been approved by the design committee, just to name a few." I held up a finger and made my way to the side of the pool, making sure my rear camera was recording, red light blinking. I grabbed a towel, wiped off, and stepped closer. "I don't want to make a big deal out of this, but you're trespassing," I told her. "This property isn't part of the HOA, so it's not subject to its rules. Please leave so I can enjoy my Saturday." She completely ignored me, scribbling something down on her clipboard instead. Then she started muttering about insubordination violations and pulled out her phone to start snapping pictures of everything she deemed aesthetically improper. I stood there in just a towel, watching her go through the motions. "Ma'am, I asked you to leave. This place isn't under HOA jurisdiction. Please go." My voice was still calm, but a little louder now. She spun around, phone in hand. "You're outside of compliance to the standards of the HOA, and I'm documenting your multiple violations." I already confirmed this property falls under our jurisdiction. If you had bothered to read the certified mailing you received, you'd know that. Just then, her phone slipped from her grip. She tried to catch it, but only managed to knock it further. She leaned forward to grab it, lost her balance, and with a squeal that sounded like an injured jackal, toppled straight into the pool. Time slowed down. Her clipboard and tape measure clattered to the ground, and she flailed helplessly in the water. Without thinking, I dove in and pulled her out, lifting her onto the edge of the pool. "Are you okay?" I asked, genuinely concerned. She shrank away from me like I was some kind of threat. I noticed her phone sinking to the bottom of the pool, so I dove under and retrieved it for her. She snatched it from my hand, scrambled to her feet, gathered her things, and stormed off, muttering something about suing me. And sure enough, a week later, I received another letter, this time informing me that I was being sued for negligent property conditions leading to life endangerment. What she didn't realize was that my security camera had captured the entire incident, timestamped, backed up in multiple places, and ready for court. I immediately contacted Elena again, and she connected me with Joe, another attorney who watched the footage and barely held back laughter. He assured me I had nothing to worry about. We went before a judge a couple of weeks later, and Margaret's lawyer looked visibly nervous. The video footage had been handed over to him beforehand, and he clearly knew his client had no case. The trial was quick and decisive. The lawsuit was dismissed, and the judge actually ruled against Margaret for trespassing. Being the Karen she was, she insisted loudly that my property belonged to the HOA, which caused her own lawyer to bury his head in his hands. The judge reviewed the survey documents and confirmed that she was entirely in the wrong. The best part? The video was played in court, and I could see the judge biting his lip, trying not to laugh. Everyone got to watch exactly what happened, that I had nothing to do with her fall and that I only helped her out of the water. Margaret turned bright red as the judge nearly burst into laughter. She started yelling at him, accusing him of being blind and not understanding zoning laws, until he threatened her with contempt, which finally shut her up. She never showed up again. No more letters, no more visits. In fact, the HOA board was so embarrassed by her actions and her stubborn insistence that she was right that they removed her from her position after 2 decades on the board. She even had to write me a handwritten apology, dripping with insincerity, and cover my legal fees. Honestly, I was fine with it. If there was a lesson to take from all of this, it was simple. Some boundaries should always be respected, especially when there's clear proof you've crossed them. From then on, the only thing I had to deal with was the heat, which I handled just fine by lounging in my backyard pool, free from prying HOA eyes. So this one's about something called malicious compliance, and honestly, it's one of those stories that feels really satisfying to tell, even if it wasn't fun to live through. A few years ago, I was hired as a manager at a tech startup with the specific task of building out their contracts department from scratch. That's no small thing. It was basically a blank canvas, and I took a lot of pride in what I built. My boss was on the opposite coast, so we didn't interact all that much, mostly emails and the occasional Zoom call. About a year into it, the company brought in consultants to overhaul almost every department, but not contracts. Ours was the only one they left untouched because it was running so smoothly. That meant a lot to me. I felt like I had proven real value. As a thank you for everything I'd done, they even sent me on a fully paid trip to the Bahamas, which was nice, don't get me wrong. But when I came back from that vacation, I decided it was time to ask for a promotion to director level. My boss said I just wasn't there yet, so I asked him what exactly I needed to do to get to that point. He sent over a list which turned out to be literally everything I was already doing. And then he kind of casually admitted that if I were made director, he wouldn't be able to take credit for my work anymore. That was the moment I realized what was going on. This wasn't about performance, it was about ego. Some friends told me I should either quit or just shut up and deal with it. But I chose a third option, one that I guess you could call killing with kindness. I wrote my boss a sincere apology for overstepping. I told him I understood where he was coming from and that I'd be stepping fully back into the manager role. Then I printed out the official manager job description, taped it to my desk, and started following it to the letter. And let me tell you, things went downhill fast. We started missing sales targets. Products got delayed. My boss agreed to terms and agreements that completely wrecked the budget and messed up product rollouts. He didn't understand commission structures, so salespeople started manipulating contract language. We ended up paying commissions on contracts that had termination clauses, meaning the deals could have been canceled at any time. I only stepped in once, just once, to stop a contract amendment from being approved because my boss was unknowingly letting a VP inflate sales numbers. That one move brought in the controller and the CFO. Eventually, even the CEO had to get involved. Meanwhile, rumors were flying around the office. People were saying my boss was walking around with stress balls and cursing in meetings. And me? I was chill as ever. With all the extra time I now had on my hands, I actually studied for and earned a couple of professional certifications. I even started leaving work early to hit the gym before it got crowded. About a month after I stopped taking on extra responsibilities, my boss gave me a 7% bonus. No explanation, but I could tell what he was thinking. He wanted me to quietly take back on the director-level duties without officially giving me the title. But I kept sticking to that manager job description like it was gospel. 6 months later, after taking 10 days of my unlimited PTO, which, by the way, shouldn't have even been an issue, I got laid off. Yeah, that's how it ended. So I took 3 months off to recharge and then landed a new job with a 35% salary increase. I'm happy where I am now, and I truly love the people at my current company. But watching someone take credit for your work again and again? That's tough. It's defeating. It sticks with you. If you've ever dealt with a boss like that, well, first of all, I feel for you. I really do. But I'd also love to hear your story. Drop it in the comments if you're up for sharing. I'm sure we've all got a few of these. Alright, so this next one I'm calling Revenge on a Bully. And honestly, it happened not too long ago, just a few months back. Now, with everything still kind of recovering from the pandemic, jobs are tough to come by in my country, especially the good ones, the ones that actually pay well. So when I got headhunted by a pretty large IT company, one that's even a subsidiary of the government, I felt like I had really hit the jackpot. This was during a time when I was switching jobs, so it felt like things were finally falling into place. I'd been with the new company for about 3 months when something kind of unexpected happened. I was walking past a room and saw the HR manager stepping out with a new candidate, someone who looked oddly familiar. As soon as I saw her face, I knew exactly who it was, an old classmate of mine from college. Let me backtrack a bit here, because this wasn't just any classmate. Her name is V, and she and I had a complicated history. I entered college later than most people. I worked for a few years first, so I was already in my mid-20s when I started. Most of my classmates were between 18 and 20. V always stood out, but not in a good way. She had this coldness to her, this complete lack of empathy. She used to make fun of anyone who was sick, injured, or struggling financially. You'd hear her say things like, "If you're that sick, you shouldn't even be here," or "Poor people should work instead of trying to go to school." There was another classmate, G, who had cerebral palsy. Standing for long hours or walking long distances was hard for her. Since I was a film major and producing films was part of our final grade, I often ended up covering for her when she couldn't handle certain tasks. And V? She never missed a chance to pile on G. There was one time when G had to be hospitalized in the middle of a shoot due to spine issues. I stepped in to cover her duties so the project wouldn't fall apart, and V just kept ranting at me. Something like, "I'm doing the job of 2 people and you're the one complaining?" Like I didn't already know how much I was doing. Another time, I had an eye injury from an accident that left me half blind for a month, couldn't even wear my glasses under the gauze. I once asked V if a lecturer was in the room she was coming out of, and she snapped at me, telling me to go check myself. Anyway, circling back, the HR manager at my new company was actually a friend of mine. So, after realizing that V was applying for a position in their department, I pulled her aside for coffee and told her the whole story. I explained how V treated people, especially those who were vulnerable, people with disabilities, single parents, folks going through tough times. Then I posed the question, how could she trust V to make fair decisions for employees when she clearly looked down on them? The final decision was obviously up to the HR manager, but I figured it was worth sharing what I knew. A little while later, I heard that they went with a different candidate instead. I wish I could have seen the look on V's face when she was told that the company had chosen someone else, someone more empathetic, more suitable. My HR friend even showed me the email they sent her explaining the decision. It was polite, professional, and crystal clear. A couple of months later, I ran into V again at a classmate's company opening ceremony. I'm pretty sure she knew I had something to do with her not getting the job, because she gave me the coldest, longest stink eye all night. And honestly, that was the best feeling ever. The next story I call Karen claimed she owned my house. This goes back to when I was younger. My parents divorced early on, my dad remarried his mistress, and my mom moved to another country. They both provided money for us, but otherwise weren't really around. We all lived in the house our parents owned. Eventually, my older siblings moved out, leaving only my youngest brother, who was 17 at the time. He had been dating a girl since he was 15, she was 14 when they started. When he stayed alone, she basically moved in right away. My mom came home for a visit and kicked her out. The girl's mom then approached mine, suggesting they get the kids married since they were so in love and had been together for 2 years already. Her idea was to do it before my brother turned 18, so there wouldn't be any legal issues when he became an adult. My mom thought it was ridiculous and suggested they break up and wait until the girl was 18. Then she had to leave again, leaving my brother alone. 3 months later, that same girl's mom moved into my parents' house, claiming it was abandoned since only a minor lived there. She tried changing the bills to her name and even convinced neighbors to testify that she'd been living there for years. My brother was young, lonely, and didn't know better, so he let it happen. But I couldn't just stand by. I had moved a few states away, but I decided to step in. I moved back into my old room and took my sister's room for my kids, which meant she and her family had nowhere to sleep except the living room. She broke some of my stuff, yelled at my kids, "Don't mess with my babies," and even called the cops on me, claiming I was trespassing. She picked fights with my neighbor when he backed me up with the police. When she finally left, she took some of my parents' belongings with her. She even tried convincing my brother to move out with her, knowing I'd eventually leave. She wanted him to stay so she could take over the house again. But he'd had enough. He finally broke it off with her. I moved back to my husband's home state afterward, and my brother didn't let anyone else move in. In fact, he stayed single for a long time after that. From what I heard later, she tried pulling the same stunt with someone else's house and eventually had to be removed by police. Now, looking back, I grew up in a very dysfunctional family. My parents basically moved on with their lives and barely paid us any attention. We were left to fend for ourselves from the time I was 14. My younger siblings were 9 and 10. I don't live in the US, and when I moved out, my grandma or aunt would take care of the kids since they refused to come with me. Alright, so here's a story that's all about nuclear-level revenge, and honestly, it's one you're not going to want to miss. This one's titled, "Neighbor Tried to Get My Mom Fined Over Our Shed, so I Got His $40,000 Pool Filled In." I live with my mom, and she's just the quiet type, keeps to herself, never bothers anyone. She doesn't cause drama, doesn't stir the pot, just wants to live peacefully. But a few months ago, our new neighbor decided to make things personal. Out of nowhere, he reported her to the city for having what he called an illegal shed in the backyard. Total nonsense. The thing is, that shed had been there for years, and it was fully permitted. No sketchy build, no sneaking around. Legit structure, legit paperwork. An inspector actually came out, checked everything over, and then left without even saying a word. Classic passive-aggressive neighbor move, right? But this guy, he walked away looking smug, like he'd just scared us into silence. Like he thought we were just going to roll over and take it. Well, that's when I decided to do a little digging of my own. Turns out, Mr. High and Mighty Neighbor had a brand new pool installed, and wouldn't you know it, it was built way too close to the property line. Worse than that, it was sitting directly on top of a utility easement. Which meant, legally, that pool shouldn't have been there at all. So I did exactly what he did, but better. I filed a report with the city, attached clear photos, quoted the exact city codes they violated, gave them everything they needed to investigate. 2 weeks later, the city responded. And they didn't mess around. They told him he either had to move the pool, which was basically impossible, or fill it in completely. He lost the whole thing. $40,000. Gone. Literally down the drain. Now every day, he gets to look out at our perfectly legal shed, the very same one he tried to get us in trouble for, while standing over a giant pile of dirt where his brand new pool used to be. And as for my mom, she's sleeping great now. No noise complaints. No fines. No annoying neighbors trying to flex their power. Just peace and quiet. And yeah, guys, if you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe. It really helps me out. I'll see you again tomorrow. Thanks so much for watching.